Imagine celebrating a holiday and bullets rain down. This isn't a fiction. A Jewish festival in Sydney became a shooting scene in 2025, shaking the entire world. But that was just the beginning. A Hasidic Jewish man was attacked in front of a children in a shocking hate-filled attack that sparked outrage and calls from actions from community leaders. So schools, festivals, synagogues, no places feel safe anymore. A shocking rise in anti-Jewish violence went from isolated incidents to headline news worldwide. This is a truth no one wants to ignore. They have been scapegoated for empires falling, wars raging, and economics crashing. And this group makes less than 0.2% of the world's population. Hunted through history, blamed for crimes they didn't commit, and targeted even after surviving the horrors of the Holocaust. This is the story of anti-Semitism, an ancient poison that still needs mind today. So that hey, the answer will shock you. Why is one group continuously oppressed throughout the history? Even though Jesus himself was Jewish, their refusal to convert to Christianity after his death marked the beginning of centuries of marginalization and persecution. Over time, propaganda twisted Judaism into the enemy of Christianity, and anti Semitism became the go to scapegoat for Europe's problems, all problems. You might have heard conspiracy theories like Jews control the world, Jews control the media. These dangerous myths fueled distrust, envy, and resentment and created a rabbit hole of radicalization that still traps many Jews today. But why had this ancient hatred persisted so long? Let's uncover the truth. So, against Jews, reasons or counterparts, the controversies, expulsions, and Zionism. If you see throughout the history, Jewish communities were expelled from 109 countries, and a staggering number that reflects centuries of rejection and scapegoating. The 20th century Zionist movements completely emerged as a goal to establishing a Jewish homeland in Palestine that led to growing tension between the Jewish settlers and the Palestinian local people. So, the conflict sometimes turned violent with Zionist militants involved in actions that displaced hundreds and thousands of Palestinians. Legacy of pain still felt today across the world. So also if you see the tourism, the propaganda in an effort to reshape the international image, Israel launched what sometimes called as bikini diplomacy. What is bikini diplomacy? A modern liberation destination. Israel soldiers were often shown as attractive, empowered, and progressive, while Palestinians were frequently casted as obstacles and disruptors to this idealized new modern image. These efforts aren't just marketable, they are part of large narrative, battle shaping perceptions worldwide as per the Jews' image. And the birthright programs, you see, Israel's program is another example that offering free trips to Jewish youths to connect them to the Israel community via with cultural education. It also justly subtly promotes Zionist values and encourages the Jewish marriages to help sustain the population. This isn't a truth to face, but to secure a future. Israel has used tools like sex, appeal, beauty, and fun and marketing tactics that have tangible outcomes, such as encouraging more births. More babies means more people become pregnant occupation, so they can maintain the military infrastructure, the country infrastructure, and all system will come into place, so that they try to convince people to look the other way of to participate by making this harsh reality looks entirely sexy. And this historical the stereotype of the Russian proverb saying the Jews will tell you what happened to them, but won't he tell that why it happened? So this observation, if you see the historical stereotype, were less about facts but more about the fear and power struggles. And if you see the medieval Europe's Jews were completely excluded from the citizenship scholarships and banned from the government jobs or military roles. They couldn't join, professionals, pushing them into money lending profession where Christianity completely avoided due to the church rules against usury. This economic rule bred harmful stereotypes of greed and exploitation. During the First Crusade in 1096, anti-Semitic attacks erupted in France and the Holy Roman Empire. One of the darkest moments was spread of blood libel accusation, false claims that Jews kidnapped and killed Christian children for ritual purposes. The case of William of Norwich in England is one infamous example where Jews were forced to wear yellow badges, marking them as outsiders from the community, also exploited by the Nazis. Romans who worshipped many gods distrusted Jews for their beliefs in one God that wrongly linked their belief to Jesus' death, even though Jesus was crucified by Romans themselves in the first place. So the Catholic Church further promoted anti-Semitic ideas, suggesting Jews have served their purpose by preparing for Jesus' arrival, and now they should disappear from the world entirely. So that this church restrictions on Christians and charging interest means Jews fill their financial roles, but it also fed the stereotypes of Jews as greedy moneylenders. When the Black Death struck Europe in the 14th century and wiped out a third of the world population, people looked for answers blaming Jews for poisoning wells and spreading diseases leading to the horrific massacres. As resentment grew over their economic successes too, Jews were expelled repeatedly from England in 1290, France in 14th century, Germany in 1350s, Portugal in 1496, province in 1512, and United States in 1569. Spain also did that in 1492. During the Protestants' Reformation, anti-Semitic sentiments persisted. Martin Luther, initially sympathetic to Jews, denounced them harshly after they rejected the teachings. The false narrative blaming Jews for Jesus' death was a major driver of hatred. Bible passage "His blood be on us, on our children." Matthew version 7:25 was twisted to imply Jewish collective guilt. These kind of social exclusions and myths fuel the Nazis' ideologies. To Nazis believed that Jewish identity was permanent and dangerous, which led to Holocausts where 6 million Jews were systematically murdered there. Even today, some extremists views that like those like promoting white supremacy use distorted ideas like social Darwinism to justify violence, such as the tragic 2018 shooting of the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh. So though Jews make less than quarter of 1% of the global population, they have been scapegoated during the political and economic crisis times and over again. Um, in the modern Europe, in most of the centuries, Jews just continued to be brutally prosecuted. Pogroms, violent riots targeting Jews occurred in Ukraine by Eastern Orthodox and Poland by Roman Catholic Poles in 17th century. In 1894, the Athens shocked the world where Alfred, a Jewish French army captain, was falsely accused of spying. Despite evidence proving his innocence, fabricated stories fueled anti-Semitic Enlightenment thinkers criticized that influence of monotheistic religions in viewed as Jews as a threat to Christianity. Adolf Hitler later just weaponized these ideas, portraying them as racist threats that could disrupt Germany's radical purity. The Nazis pushed anti-Semitism to new horrific extremes, dehumanizing Jews and aiming to exterminate them. The campaigns culminated the Holocaust with 5.7 million Jews murdered. The early 20th century also saw the publication of Protocol of Elders of Zion, a forged document claiming that the Jews were plotting again for world demolition. The fake evidences helped fuel global conspiracies, theories that still persist even today. And also for the Zionist movement, the horror of Holocaust, where Jews sought a homeland to escape the ongoing persecutions on them, that desire gave them for the Zionist movement, aiming to create a Jewish state in Palestine. a land with a deep historical and religious significance to Jews. And in 1917, Britain's Balfour Declaration expressed support for Jews' homeland in Palestine, the British control after Ottoman Empire's collapse. And throughout 1920s and 1930s, Jewish migration to Palestine increased, swelling the Jewish population. But this caused growing resentment among local Arab communities, where they felt like their land was being taken away from them. Though Jews only owned 6% of that land, United Nations in 1947 partition plan proposed dividing the territory roughly equally between the Jews and the Arabs. This sparked conflict where Israel's declared independence in 1948 broke the neighboring Arab states fully go on war. As a result, about 700,000 Palestinians were displaced, creating a refugee crisis that is unresolved still today. Why does this all matter? Because understanding this history will help us see how the propaganda and scapegoating create cycles of hatred and violence. It reminds us that how dangerous stereotypes and false narratives can be, and why standing up against them is crucial for the communities and world peace. And modern anti-Semitism, if you see, despite everything we have seen through the entire history, I think it's not about past. It's still alive. 2022 poll states Anti-Defamation League found that 85% of Americans believe at least one anti-Semitic stereotype, a sharp jump from 61% just a few years earlier. Even more shocking, 40% of Americans believed Israel treats Palestinians similar to how Nazis treated Jews. This global rise in anti-Semitism is especially visible in countries like Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan, where hostility towards Jews were widespread. In many Muslim majority nations, Israel is seen as illegitimate state, and the Palestine struggle has become a symbol of broader injustice to mankind. And as core anti-Semitism is driven by deep irrational prejudices and conspiracy theories, it's dangerous data that Jews somehow control wealth, the world, power, everything. Whereas the crisis hits, whether the political, economies, or health crisis comes, Jews are scapegoated, where they're hidden puppet masters behind the scene that no one knows who pulls the string. And reason for envy is, why does this prejudice persist? So part of this envy, it just comes from real achievements that is rooted in Jews' culture and their history, wealth and the hard work of Jews. Jews' culture values education and then the personal responsibility, the hard work that they put. Success is not just for oneself, but for Jewish communities itself. So limited land ownership, historically barred from owning land. Many Jews turned to trade, finance, and commerce fields that helped build economic successes despite restrictions. Opportunities in finances, while Christian laws completely forbade changing interest, Jews filed this role as moneylenders, gaining influences in financial systems and education. Jewish communities, they just prioritize education to the core, leading to high achievements in fields from science to arts. Community support and resilience made this possible. Strong communal bonds and emphasis on perseverance how helped Jews overcome countless adversities. These factors combined created success stories that created both admiration and unfortunately resentment also the worldwide. And anti-Semitism doesn't just survive because Jews are powerful. You need to know that it survives because fear always needs a target, and every time an empire collapses, a plague spreads, economic crashes, a society feels lost, and there should be someone to blame, to show your fingers to, and the history shows that the same pattern again and again. The minority becomes the emotional punching bag for massive failure. They didn't cast. Jews didn't invent greed, war, capitalism, or corruption. They were simply visible, different, and successful enough to threaten the fragile egos of world. This hatred isn't just about Judaism. It's about scapegoating, and it's about ego disguised as morality. It's about people choosing myths and over responsibility and accountability. And here's the chilling part. Every conspiracy you believe about Jews today has already before believed in right before violence followed itself. The Holocaust didn't start with gas chambers. It started with simple jokes, whispers, questions, lies repeated so often then they felt as truth. History keeps screaming the same warning, but humanity keeps hitting mute again and again. So the real question isn't why Jews are hated. The real question is who gets blamed the next when the world needs another excuse, and whether this time we have finally recognized the pattern before it's too late or not. It's up to all of us.